Okay, what now? We have a problem. Because at the moment, this is it. There are no more Tintin projects planned. Could this be really the end of the famous reporter? But wait, there's one thing still missing. The continuation of The Adventures of Tintin, The Secret of the Unicorn, that movie made by Peter Jackson and Steven Spielberg. Oh yes, let's do this. Let me take a look into a very special crystal ball. Let me see what future could there be for The Adventures of Tintin. What do I think that will be in this series of movies? So let's take a look at The Adventures of Tintin, Red Rackham's Treasure, and speculate how it will turn out. Okay, let's start with what facts do I have as a starting point for my speculations. Steven Spielberg and Peter Jackson announced that the Tintin films were designed as a trilogy, but Hergé never made a trilogy. The longer stories stretch over a maximum of 2 volumes. But it seems illogical to me to want to make a trilogy if the films are not related in terms of content. For example, if you were to make film 1 and 2 after the volumes, the comic books, The Secret of the Unicorn and Red Rackham's Treasure, and film number 3 after any other comic, film 3 would be a bit out of place and just look like some sort of appendage. No, I think they made sure that there was some sort of ongoing storyline in the trilogy. Now, with film number 1, the end of the story from Red Rackham's Treasure was already taken. At the end of this movie, Tintin and Haddock find the treasure in the globe in the basement of Marlinspike Hall. But the authors made a little trick. The story ends there, but Tintin finds another parchment in the globe. And what was hidden in this globe is only a small part of the treasure. The parchment promises the whole cargo of the unicorn. And now, welcome to the wonderful world of speculation. I suspect that movie 2 is a mixture of Red Rackham's Treasure and The Shooting Star. How do I get that? Well, there is no real villain in the story of Red Rackham's Treasure. Well, Thompson and Thompson mention Maximus Bird, the villain from Secret of the Unicorn, and that he has broken out of prison and is trying to get on board of the expedition ship of Tintin and Haddock. But he does not appear in the story. The Shooting Star, on the other hand, is a story about a race between 2 expeditions for a great treasure, in this case a meteoroid. And you see, the stories of The Shooting Star and Red Rackham's Treasure can be combined in a wonderful way, especially since it becomes easier to introduce Professor Calculus into the story via the European Research Society from The Shooting Star. And in this, Ivan Ivanovich Sakharin could then escape from prison and start the counter-expedition with his henchman Alan to steal the treasure from Tintin and Haddock. Perhaps, however, a completely different opponent appears. Well, as a Tintin fan, I naturally wait for Roberto Rastapopoulos to appear. Okay, then movie 2 would end with Tintin and Haddock discovering the secret cargo of the unicorn. All's well that ends well. That what it said at the end of the comic Red Rackham's Treasure. Or is it? I speculate that film 3 will be titled Prisoners of the Sun or The Temple of the Sun or something in this. But how does the connection to film 1 and 2 come about? Perhaps it will already happen in the course of film 2 that more and more of the researchers who take part in the expedition to the wreck of the Unicorn suddenly fall into a deep sleep, from which they only wake up once a day and suffer terrible agony. Oh, and mysterious shards of a crystal ball can be found next to the victims. What can that be? The curse of the treasure of the unicorn? In addition, it could be that Professor Calculus takes a piece of the treasure, a gold bracelet, and puts it on, and then he's kidnapped. The kidnapper's trail leads to South America, to the Temple of the Sun, and the persecution of the kidnappers is the subject of film 3. Well, how do I get that? In a trailer for the film The Secret of the Unicorn, they talk about a treasure aboard the Unicorn that would have changed the world history if the ship had not sunk. This fact is not dealt with in the film itself. I speculate that the treasure that was aboard the Unicorn is gold from the Spanish conquistadores. The film says that the Unicorn was on her way to South America and sank off Santo Domingo. Perhaps Captain Francis Haddock had a particularly delicate task, namely to bring back the gold stolen by the conquistadores to the Incas. On the way there, the ship was lost, the return never took place, and thus there was never a kind of reconciliation between the Inca and the colonial rulers. History played out as we know it, with all the bloodshed. The treasure could have led to a kind of peace where the colonists and natives could have lived in coexistence. And a note, I know it would have not been that easy to correct history, but I can easily imagine something like that for a movie. Now the Incas have learned that their treasure is about to be rediscovered. As in the 7 crystal balls, they put the scientists involved in the search out of action. And when Calculus puts on a bracelet from the treasure, which they consider sacred, he commits sacrilege and is said to be sacrificed in the Temple of the Sun. The end of film 3 would therefore be the return of the treasure to the Incas in the Temple of the Sun. And all is well that ends well. Oh, and one more thing, a fun fact. Due to the twisting of the treasure story, if it's used for film 2, the title Red Rackham's Treasure is unfortunately absurd, because in the comic book it is clear that it's about a treasure that Red Rackham brings on board of the Unicorn, and in the film the treasure is already on board of the Unicorn and Rackham just wants to steal it. Yeah, so if this happens, I'm curious how they will resolve this kind of contradiction. So that's it. That's all to say about Tintin. There's been no movie announced since then. So, what now? What happens next?